On the bottom right here, you have your source control status, in quotes, GitHub. That's what you are using right now. So I'm gonna go from right to left. On the right is the branch you are on. So right now we have the master branch. And here is which repository we are on. And then we have two counters here. One with the pencil is how many changes we have that are local only, that are not committed. Okay, things that we're currently working on. And then when you do commit them, they're gonna appear in this box. That would be all the commits that we have done, but that we have not pushed. So they're committed, but they're still on our local machine. So we're gonna monitor this as we move along to see what GitHub sees as changes. So every project will have a git ignore file that ignores usually local changes that we don't want to commit, but sometimes it's not always the case and we need to adjust things. So that's the only reason I'm explaining all these little things. So as we said, we want to build this in debug mode and then in release mode. So I'm going to take the solution, make sure I'm in debug, and I'm going to do a build. The output here should show the status of that build, and if there's any dependencies to pull or anything, unless otherwise noted, that's done automatically for you. And we have a successful build. Now we're gonna switch to release mode and do another build. And it succeeded. And it's giving you a message here. It's not the case for all the modules, but here I have a message showing that it generated an install package. So in order to have this module available in the modules of DNN here, it needs to be installed. It needs to be registered inside of DNN. So we're gonna go into extensions. We're gonna install an extension, and you can drag and drop it or select it. I'm gonna select it. Usually I drag and drop, but that's more like on my real computer because I have multiple screens. So the generated install package will be in my C drive, DNN, the modules website, inside the desktop modules folder, the one that I cloned, DNN announcements, and you're gonna see that a lot in the community modules, especially the core modules, where your source package will be DNN dot the module name, and the actual running on the DNN website version of the result of that build will be inside of just the module name. So this is our source and it builds to there. That's very common in the core modules. So we want to get our source. You're gonna see usually an installation folder, and in here you're gonna see your different packages, or in the case of this one it makes a folder per version. So we need to go in here, and what we want to do, we can do the install or the source version. They both gonna work. We're gonna do the install. Next we're gonna have here our package information, the release notes, which sometimes is good to read, and the license agreement. And then you have the report of that installation. So you want to scroll down on this and make sure there's nothing red, nothing that starts with error. If there's warnings, you may want to read it and see if there's anything to do special. In our case, everything went fine, so the module is installed. The site will now restart because we changed the DLL file by doing that. and every time a DLL is replaced in the bin folder, that fires up a website restart. I can now add a module, and announcements is right here. If you don't see it, just search or start scrolling. This populates as you scroll. So our module is here. We're gonna click to add it. Place it on a page, and we're good to go. So this has nothing right now, and I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm not gonna demo the module and everything. I just want to show you that how to debug. So if I take, let's say, the announcements view, if I go into the source code for that, I can put a breakpoint on, let's say, on unload. So to put a breakpoint, you just click on the margin here, and this will not be reached because it's in release mode. So we need to switch that to debug mode and build it. One succeeded, and now I'm just gonna refresh the site to make sure it loads that new DLL. But now you can go into the debug menu and you're gonna attach this to a running process. We want to show the processes from all users because this runs as a service, and we want to search in the W's for a service called W3WMP. And you can expand and contract these columns. If you have more than one, usually the username should appear. I don't know why it doesn't appear in this case, but we're gonna attach to this one. Okay, I know why. I'm sorry for that. It's always good to start Visual Studio as an administrator. So you want to right click on Visual Studio, run as administrator. Accept the admin prompt. You're gonna see your recent open projects and repositories, and we can just open that. Gonna open the solution file. Okay, and now we can go to debug, attach the process, show the process from all users, search in the W's, and now you're gonna see the username. It's because we were not running as administrator for Visual Studio. So you're gonna see the same user account we use for the permissions, IIS app pool, modules, local test ME. So we wanna attach to that process. It may take a couple seconds to load the required symbols, and basically what we're waiting for is for this empty white thing to become red. And now that it is, we know that whenever we're gonna reach this part in the code, it's gonna pause right here and you can debug through it. So I'm gonna go here and just refresh the page, which should fire that unload, and that's it. You see it turned yellow, and from here you can use these things or keyboard shortcuts to step through the code. So usually it's like F10 to step over it one by one, and F11 will bring you inside of what's highlighted. So I'm gonna get inside the get templates here. If I press F11 and I can monitor what's happening, I can hover over stuff, and I'm gonna have a little expandable thing to view this object properties and methods and all these things. I can enumerate lists and everything. So it's very easy to follow along, and when you are done you can continue, which will start running again until it hits the next breakpoint, or the same one if you're in a loop, or you can hit stop if you just want to stop debugging. So in my case, I'm gonna stop debugging. So that's pretty much it. Now the actual issue that we're gonna be working on is this one here. Where the edit URL for articles is wrong. And I don't want this video to be too long, so I already did my work of finding what was the problem here and how to correct it. So I'm just gonna do the correction without testing, because I already done all that. I just don't want the video to be too long. But basically the problem we're having here is how the navigate URL method is used, and we can notice there's still 0 changes even if I build and everything, because everything that was generated is getting ignored by the git ignore file. So that's not stuff we are going to commit. Included the installation package that we generated and everything, that's ignored. So the problem we're having is in components, business, announcements info, at around line 300 something, guess in here 300 something. Okay, so this is the offending code. Now as you work your way around, you might start, you know, deleting lines and putting this on 2 lines, for instance. Let's say I want to do this. Okay, that, even though we didn't change how the code works, it's still a change. So we want to try to avoid as much as possible changes that have no meaning, unless you're really doing a pull request that is code cleanup, where you change no features, you fix no bugs, you just make it look nicer. Unless you're doing that, you want to avoid changing the code styling. So if, let's suppose that I save that and I did like 12 changes on this file trying to find the bug and this and that, and now I found it, I know what I need to change, it's only this here. I want to clean up. You can go click on the pencil here, which is going to show you all the current changes, everything that we would commit. And the first time GitHub tools will ask you for your name and email address, that's going to be saved in this machine to use when you submit stuff. I'm going to save this, and if you double click on any of the changes, you're going to see a diff, which is a before after, and you're going to have in red what's removed and in green what's added, and a little bit brighter you're going to see more details, you know. So the space here was replaced by a new line, so there's no longer a space here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you're gonna see a scroll bar and what's removed, what's added, and when you do a change, well, you both remove and add stuff. So if I want to revert everything, let's suppose all that file was messed up, you can just undo changes and you have the full file as it was before you started making that change. Okay, so we've cloned, we now need to set our upstream repository. Still in the Theme Explorer, you're gonna have a little house which brings you home, and connections which manages the connections. So if I go home, I'm gonna be on the home of all the Git features that I can use for this repository. And I want to go into the settings, and it's not global settings, it's a setting for this repository, and I want to manage the remotes. So I want to add, you see this one is called origin, that's the one we cloned from. So that's this one, the one we cloned from. We want to add an upstream, so what we're going to click add. The name, we'll name it upstream, And now we need the Git URL to that repository. So if we go back into DNN announcements, the one that is on DNN community, if you're on the home of that, if you're not inside of tabs, that's the URL for this. Now, one important thing specific to Visual Studio, I don't know if it's the case in other tools, is that we need to add .git at the end. And we'll save this, and we now have a upstream. For now, it has no use. We're gonna see a little bit later why this is used. It's when you want to update your local copy and your origin to match changes that were done by other people. So back to our business, we're gonna do the code change here, which I already have done to not waste too much of your time. So this is what I need. Whoops, I cannot copy paste from my local machine to this. Okay, I'm gonna just type it in. So we don't want to do string edit URL equals globals navigate URL edit So that's basically my change. I'm gonna save the file. I have one change to commit. I want to double check that I did what I wanted to do, which is fine. So basically that fixes the issue just because I know, because I tested before and I had this troubleshooted first and tested and everything. So you would do that and then do your changes. Now I'm just gonna suppose that for some reason I would have changed other stuff that I don't want to commit. For instance, let's go let's go, I don't know. Just gonna add a few spaces here and there, just an example. This could be changes you have done while troubleshooting. This could be changes you have done in order to be able to build locally. So now, just before I do my commit, I'm gonna see the list of changes and I can review them. So if I double click, I'm gonna see what's changed. So I see that everything is the same. The only thing that changes this is really what I want to commit. On this file, I've changed just spaces. And they don't even show here because I think there's options. Ignore white space. Okay, you see? So now I can see what I've changed is just spaces. So I don't want to bother whoever is reviewing this to check all that. So I don't want to commit that. If you want to commit only part of what you've done, you can click on what you want to commit and click on the little plus. Sorry, that's going to stage them all. If you go here, you can stage if you right click on an item. Or the other way is to stage all, and then you can remove stage all. Okay, staged, you're gonna have staged and unstaged. So I could take this and drag it. It used to be drag. Minus, I guess. Well, looks like it's right click. This changed a little bit. So basically, what's in the staged will be part of the commit. What is not in the stage will not be part of the commit. This could be great too if you're working on a larger issue and you've been working on, I don't know, the data layer and the UI, and you want to make it two separate commits. So you didn't finish everything in the UI, but you kind of want to save what you've done so far. That's another way to do it. Now, in the commit message, you want to make something clear that what you have done. But right now, I'm working on the master. So if I do it this way, I'm going to be blocked later if I want to merge other changes into master. So I want to do this change on its own branch. So the branches usually should be matched to some issue. So it's a branch for issue 18. You can name it however you want, but I usually go by issue 18. Simple as this. So now I'm gonna see that issue 18 is bold. So I can now go back here and do the same commit, but it's gonna be done on its own branch. So this fixes the issue 18, and in the commit message I can write here fixed issue with URLs with edit URLs format, and there's a special keyword you can do in GitHub which is closes # and the issue number. So when this will be merged, that will automatically close that issue. You can do it on commits and you can do it on pull requests. So I'm going to commit this, and now I'm going to see that we have one pending change, which was my spaces I did just for testing. I'm gonna undo those changes because I don't want them. You could leave them there, but I just like this to be at 0. And now I see the one moved from the right part to the left part. So now it's a commit that I need to push. So I'm going to take this commit and click on it, and you're gonna see here outgoing commits. So if there's anything new on your repository on the web, they're gonna show up here. If there's anything new on your local machine, they're gonna show up here. So I want to push that to the web. There we go. So if I were to work on another issue right away, I would go back into my master branch. I would create a new branch, name it appropriately, and then do another issue. In this case, we're going to do only one. So now we need to submit a pull request for the people at the upstream to be able to pull this change. So I prefer to do this directly in GitHub, but there's ways to do it inside Visual Studio too, but I don't like the way it works. So I'm gonna go to my GitHub, and I'm gonna go into my announcements, and you're gonna see here recent changes. You know, I pushed a new branch called issue 18, which we can see here, and it's suggesting me to compare and do a pull request. So when you click here, automatically this will suggest to push to the development branch of the DNN announcements repository, which is correct. That's the default branch for them. It was already selected. So right here, this is the pull request title. So I'm gonna do fixes incorrect your edit URL format. And most of the repositories will have a template here for you to follow. So it says here, explain the benefit of this pull request. You can erase any parts of the template not applicable to your pull request. So right here, I'm gonna delete this and description of the pull request. Well, it's pretty simple, so I'm just gonna copy it over here. Changes made, modified the navigate URL format call format modified. Something short, that people will understand what you've done here. And then these things are little checkboxes, so it fixes a bug. It's not a feature, it's not other. Here it asks you, like I explained, to mark the issue it solved with a pound sign. So you can either write close or closes, both work, and just the issue number. In our case it was issue I forgot, not 18. So it closes 18, and when you start typing it's gonna auto-populate it for you. And I think you can even search text. Yeah, so you can search text that had this issue and it's gonna find it for you. So I'm gonna create that pull request, and the persons at the other end, at the upstream, will get notified about this and can merge it. So from here, I'm gonna pause the video, and since I have write access on that repository on the upstream, which is probably not your case if you're watching this, I'm gonna go accept it and then show you how next day or next week or something else you want to continue working on this, how you're gonna pull the changes made by other people. So I'm gonna pause this, we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so let's suppose we are a couple days, a couple weeks in the future, and the upstream repository received and merged pull requests from various people, maybe published new releases. Basically, you're out of sync from the upstream. So before you do any other change, you need to get yourself up to date. And in order to do that, as we know, we cannot directly force from upstream into origin. So there's two ways to do it. Either you create a pull request from the upstream to your origin, and then you merge that pull request. But if there's conflicts, or you don't really see what you're doing, so it's not my preferred method of doing this. The best method, I think, is to pull any changes into your local machine, build and test and see what's changed and confirm it's correct, and then you can push it to your origin. And that's what I have in this slide. So before publishing any new pull request, make sure you do it on top of the most recent code. That's very important, because if there's any conflicts in merging your pull request, there's less chances that it gets approved quickly and easily from where you want to do that pull request. So in order to do that, we need to switch to the default branch. In our case here, it's development. It could be master depending on the project, but whichever is the default one. You want to fetch from upstream so that you have the information that changed, and then you want to pull those changes from upstream. You can review, do all you want, and then you'll push that back to your origin, and everything will be now in sync, ready for your next pull request. So back to the virtual machine. I'm gonna reopen Visual Studio as an administrator, which is always a good idea with Visual Studio. And I'm going to open, you can open it from the recent, or you can open it from Theme Explorer. You're gonna have all your GitHub tracked projects in here. Does the same job. Open the solution. So, like I said, we're simulating that we are a couple days, couple weeks in the future, and I want to do another pull request. So, in order to update myself, I have to go into branches. I need to make sure I am currently on the development branch. You can just double click it or select it from this menu. Make sure you're on the default one, which in this case is development, and you want to right click on this and you want to merge from, and in the drop down here we're going to select upstream development. Now if you don't see upstream, it's because you didn't fetch. So if that's the case, you need to go into sync and fetch from upstream, and that will update what Visual Studio knows about that repository. So back to our branches. In our case it was already aware of that, so branches, development, and we want to merge from upstream development. And if you want to check out the individual files one by one before publishing the commit, you can untick this and commit after, but I usually leave it ticked when I'm merging from the upstream because it's usually able to build and has no conflicts. So I'm gonna merge this. The repository is updated, that's fine, and now I see I have 18 new commits. So that's what I was doing when I paused the video. I went ahead and merged a couple pull requests that fix multiple bugs in this module, and if you want to review each of these, you can double click them. You're gonna see exactly which file changed, and from here you can analyze even further and get each little change. So this is the pull request that we did with this change. If I go into another one, if I come back here, if I go back into another one, like let's keep it simple, updating the release notes. So you could see that this was updated on this commit. So, you know, commit should be really, you know, some logical things, and pull request should be a complete solution for something. And now the only thing we want to do is to take all that and push it to our origin. And we have everything in sync. So if I was now to start a new issue, I would create a new branch, issue 99, and that would be based on the latest code that was merged. So I'm gonna cancel out of this, and we are going to move to our next example, which will be a pull request on the DNN platform repository.